So I've gone through 20-something years of collecting art. And so I get into this digital realm, and it turns out that you've also got to develop an eye for digital art. So that was my entry into NFTs. I started getting into the ecosystem, but at the time it was still very much like, this is a financial thing for me because I still think most of the art is crap.
So you had a lot of people getting into the NFT art world because of all the gold rush syndrome that was prevalent at the time.
Digital images of apes selling for hundreds of thousands and in some case over $1 million.
Like the Bored Apes.
Influencers like Logan Paul and KSI posting that they've bought an NFT, a Bored Ape Yacht Club.
People have heard of, in these cartoon character generative projects.
Are you confused?
With these lo-fi, I would go so far as to say zero artistic JPEGs that were running around.
And I think NFTs, it's like, okay, we know that this is where art is going, so I have to get on this.
For me right now, NFTs just seem very childish.
I think that the mechanics is what scares me. And
it's very confusing about what it is.
Compared to the physical work I could collect for the same price, it didn't come close.
I think even when I tried to read about it, the language of it, I'm like, I don't know what this means, and I'm trying to read it. It's just really technical.
They don't have any substance.
Sometimes I wonder if they created this barrier for some artists not to be able to get into this world.
We're still looking at cave paintings, you know what I mean? Those are thousands of years old, and people still flock to see Mona Lisa. People still flock to see these handmade things.
We're thinking about how these pieces are completely different than how NFTs have been put on the platform before.
I wanted this first collection to represent artists that have had success over a period of time and also artists who are having great success starting right now. Lisette Correa is an artist known as Art Addict who came from the fashion industry.
I went to school to be a fashion designer. I specialize in couture, and then I got an early internship at Sean John, and I fell in love with, streetwear.
And she started taking pattern work and color work that normally would not come off of a garment and putting it on walls throughout the city.
And she uses a lot of the patterning that she has, I guess, been utilizing as a fashion designer for the majority of her career up to now.
When I focused on how streetwear was made working at Sean John, I kind of shift gears and I wanted to focus more on my culture because I didn't feel like couture really represented my culture. And so I went down that avenue, and from there I went into fast fashion and specializing in streetwear. And once you design so many t-shirts, you start to realize it's a canvas. And from there, I was like, okay, I want to make my canvas bigger.
And the first time I encountered her work, I came across her live painting on Ponce, this beautiful color gradient with leopard print on it on the side of a shipping container. And I was just completely wowed, and I texted somebody and I was like, who is this woman? This is gorgeous.
So I'm Puerto Rican. I used to say 100% as every proud Puerto Rican would, but now after DNA testing, I realized that I'm actually Taíno, which is our indigenous heritage. So I really wanted to spread this message of the Taínos and do it in a palatable way with bright, vibrant colors, so that's already going to attract people. And so for the Taínos, I made them purple to represent royalty. So this was the piece of my grandmother that I added in last minute. And in that time that I was designing that mural, my grandmother actually passed away. And like I said, Tainos were the only indigenous people that had female caciques. Once she passed away, I decided to make her the middle pillar in my mural because she was the pillar that held up the bridge, which is my family. So this is where you see the message, and she used to always say to me, I carry you in my heart. And so I said it back to her. Starting off with this piece, I focused on plants that actually represented El Yunque, which is the rainforest in Puerto Rico. One of the plants that you'll find all over the island, but especially in El Yunque, is there's tons of monstera plants.
She uses monstera leaves in her work. The monstera plant is known to shed a lot of leaves in order to grow stronger.
I mean, they're everywhere and they're huge. Like they're like the size of elephant ears, you know, like gigantic monsteras everywhere.
And you're like a plant mommy of the monsters.
I am
even like
such
the
a
wild
plant
cat.
mom.
The way that she approaches the world with such positivity, it's like you gotta let some stuff go, you gotta shed some stuff so that you can be stronger as a human. It's just such a positive message, you know, a beautifully bright colored mural that's also poetic down to its core.
When I think of, okay, how can I be an NFT artist? Like what would I do? What am I gonna create for them? For me, it was like, okay, well, how do I bring Earth to the digital world? And that's my whole concept with it, is like, I still want to be Earth. Like, I don't want to let something transform me into what that is, because I still have to stay true to who I am.
I think it's, okay, so it took the first 2 months, I was just thinking in the back of my head, okay, maybe this is a fad, like, I don't really get it.
During my exploration of the established artists that I respected and followed, I did find one Atlanta artist that had crossed that bridge, Greg Mike. And while he was still producing fine art, murals, sculptures in the real world, he minted several collections and was extremely successful in selling them. So Greg Mike demonstrated to me that an established artist in Atlanta could enjoy success. The innovative way that he went about creating these, that was actually a really interesting and viable path.
And over time, more, I would say, legitimate artists started getting into it.
So you had real artists, talented artists, producing really creative pieces that were fit for the digital medium. And there were collectors that were paying attention to this and acquiring them. So it seemed that there was a side to this that was more legitimate. And in addition, the NFT promise was the smart contracts.
That's also kind of a great thing about NFTs, is there's a public ledger.
I can see there's some interesting technology behind it because I've been into crypto and bought Bitcoin back in the day.
Through the smart contracts, you could set up the royalty commissions for perpetuity on all secondary sales.
The technology seems to be something unique, that people are actually building smart contracts on a blockchain.
So the ability to track your work, track the sale of your work, and then receive royalties from it is something that visual artists have never really had access to.
And there's some sort of digital ownership involved, which I thought was an interesting concept, right? Even if I didn't really care for the art that much, the ownership of something digital interested me.
if we could produce a collection of Atlanta artists and their works, that by helping them get into the NFT space, we'd be also helping them get a revenue stream that would persist beyond those initial sales. And so that was a motivator to creating an NFT collection of Atlanta artists.
An artist that I had been admiring from afar was Alicia Renee.
I've recently been on my spiritual journey, and what I've noticed is a lot of concepts that I'm learning in my spirituality are mimicked by the digital tech space. Even 3D modeling with vertices and lines and planes, there's this spiritual aspect of understanding like 2D, 3D, 4D, your mental space, your unconscious, subconscious mind, and your physical reality. And I think that they're most definitely connected because I see the world as like a sum, and just the parts within the world are just emanations. So of course, digital tech is an emanation, in my opinion, of the spirit.
I was blown away. I don't see people do work as well tuned as she does it.
I express myself in symbols, in essence, and totems that communicate messages that are not really in the physical reality.
I knew that when it came to world building and a digital space, this was a person that really knocked it out of the park every time I saw any piece that she had ever done.
So I work in the digital realm, but I also work in the physical realm. Right now, I feel like the digital space is allowing me to express my inner visions more than I was able to in previous mediums like fashion. I can actually communicate and construct sentences with just images. To me, when I put images together, it's like a word, a phrase, a sentence, a paragraph, a story. What I want to say is I'm exploring that through using the chakras as like a subject matter. What does the inner world of a chakra look like? I express a lot of what can't be seen, that can only be felt, and sometimes only understood in an inner knowing. So that's why my work seems very mysterious. I use a lot of symbols. There's this idea of building out some of my symbology that I work with and using it as, one, a portal to look through. Two, it can also be mounted on the wall with superimposed images overlaid, projected over it.
And so I wanted to see if she wanted to consider building some worlds within this world, or, you know, what is she doing now that is going to take this collection to another level and another space.
As a collector, you collect the work of an artist, and then the artist recedes into the background, and the focus is really just on the art. And over time, the artist is almost long forgotten. And as a collector, that connection with the artist is often very important, that relationship.
In general, people are putting their artworks, they're minting them themselves and putting them on a platform. And the platform is the curator, right? A platform might have a different style. It might have a different purpose. It might have different rules, and or might be more energy conscious. So that's the decision that an artist is making with NFTs, where an artist is making a decision and a curator is making a decision on going into that traditional relationship.
I was looking at the OpenSea platform, and a particular piece caught my eye. It's a Jacques-Louis David piece called The Intervention of the Sabine Woman, which is a wonderful masterpiece hanging in the Louvre. A digital artist going under the name of Slime Sunday appropriated it and essentially set up the trope of the battle of cryptocurrencies against the US dollar, which is, the battle of good versus evil. And it sold for $40. 6 months later, after about 5 transactions in between, it was finally listed for $3,700. But within 6 months, that whole thing essentially dried up. And now that particular piece has remained listed and has not sold for more than a year. And that just to me speaks to the craziness, the euphoria around the various cryptocurrencies spilled over into the NFT art marketplace.
The way that an artwork and or collection is presented to the public has a lot to do with how the public receives it, not just how the artwork was made. Also, a gallerist's relationship with their artist is emotional. It's a talent in its own. To remove the curator from a conversation is removing a lot of creativity.
And I liken my job to being a conductor, in that conductors don't make a sound, but they make music happen. And so in the same way, I am a curator in that I don't make art, but I make art happen.
And I wanted to talk to him about artists moving into this digital space.
Arts marketing is about fostering relationships and continuing to forge forward with connections with those relationships and to leave no stone unturned, but then to return to those stones to continue to foster those relationships. And it's super important to have people that represent artists and represent creators that are expressing themselves to create a new wave of modern art history and contemporary art history in our current environment.
If there are more curators that are being brought into this space, it might be a more well-rounded and balanced space in the relationship between the buyer, the artist, and NFTs.
There are artists that are thinking about not only like the human perception of their experience, but they're also thinking about literally how our eyes work.
There was an artist that I met at an art party many years ago that had a really magnificent personality.
So my name is Bojana Ginn. I am a sculptor, new media artist.
Bojana is this amazing artist who works at this intersection of science, technology, and art, and creates these immersive installations.
Bojana's awesome. Bojana's like this brilliant unicorn of a person. She's probably the light in the center of my paintings.
Little did I know, she was also a medical doctor.
Her art pulls a lot from her research having to do with her studies in science.
Her work now incorporates VR and has, I think, a really unique place in the world because it's looking at it from a therapeutic point of view. And VR can, be a lot of different things, but I guess I don't think many people would think about it as therapy or would think about paying for therapy in a digital space. But I think that she is, and I think that's really a very unique avenue to take it.
So can you have therapy as an NFT, which is what Bojana is basically providing?
So this work really began during the pandemics. It was a time when suddenly everything stopped. Something was happening that we were unfamiliar with. We didn't know how much is going to last. We didn't know how we should act. There were lots of different voices from media saying different things. And I noticed that many of my friends were very upset and anxious about what is happening and about the future. Through my personal life, I've been through various very stressful times, especially in Yugoslavia in the 90s when the local war was happening and then NATO bombing. In kind of middle of my medical studies, there was a NATO bombing of Serbia that lasted for 2 months. You just didn't know what's going to happen. You might walk across a bridge and your life may just disappear. And talk about anxiety and depression, many people hid in their basements. Even though the bombs were falling, the city was still open and there was a lot of art. There was a lot of small art theaters. People had performances under the open stars. I understood the power of art then. It sounds like something like we should believe, right? The art is powerful and can make difference, but I actually experienced it. And I think for me, the key moment was when I decided not to do that, not to hide, but actually go and attend my studies. When this pandemic happened, I understood what people are going through. And so I wanted to contribute somehow with my work. So as an artist, I do lean toward beauty. So I was really thinking, how can I take these elements, the union of science, the union of art, and also union of spirit, and make them actually work for mental health? Is that union possible?
The importance of her work is combining the medical research with her art.
I mean, it's fantastic what people are doing with technology when it's being applied to problems that are impacting our physical lives. I have experienced her light immersion.
So the installation on the outside, the physical one, or I like to call it digital because it merges this physical with digital, which is the world in which we live. I chose the white hues, and for the virtual reality, I chose the purple ones. So there's almost like a space within space. The space is vast. It's almost like an inner universe. There's no end or beginning. You can't see it. And I like that it can lead different people to different spaces, so it can be very personal.
And never thought that I was going to come out of it such a different person with a totally different breath, pace. I didn't get it until I felt it. And whenever it changed me entirely, it really made me understand the importance and the power that these kind of fully immersive digital spaces can impact you in reality. And my entire day was different after that.
When I showed my wife the work of Bojana, this resonated with her on so many levels because she was seeing art that had the functional benefit of healing people. And this really touched her emotionally, and she was really excited.
If I could use that therapy every single day, I would. And so that makes sense. So figuring out what makes sense for this platform, but is completely dissimilar from a JPEG and a recreation of a work.
So this work will culminate in creating an NFT. They can actually have it with them in different places of their choosing.
There are a lot of people that are working analog that are learning digital, and a lot of people that are working digital that are learning how to build and fabricate. But I would say even more so than that, technology is ever changing. and you can do anything with it if you know how to exercise it, essentially. And the people that I am so lucky to know are people who are questioning, how do we push it a little further? How do we get more out of this? How is it not just a cash grab or a financial structure? How is this going to change the world for the good?